Alright, people, I don't usually just read an article without giving my 2 cents, but sometimes I stumble across an article or journalist that makes me go, ooh, this is really good. Which brings us to Kurt Schlichter, chosen by the great Andrew Breitbart personally to write commentary, a named partner at a growing Los Angeles trial lawyer, a retired Army infantry colonel with a master's in strategic studies from the United States Army War College, and a former stand-up comic, which really shows because his writing is quite witty indeed, and so I will rant his great piece, No Sacrifice for Ukraine. Hope you enjoy. We owe the Ukrainians nothing, yet our garbage ruling class is demanding that we brace ourselves for unspecified sacrifices for their sake, just as they have every time they have made some foreign policy screw-up. We normals are their janitors, we get to clean up their messes, and no one is ever held accountable. No thanks. I like Ukrainians, and while the whole dispute is much more complex than Putin bad, there is no excuse for the brutal invasion, and I hope the Russians lose. To the extent that we might spend some money on bullets and javelins for guerrillas to grind down Ivan, okay, the joke's on their Russians' new buddies, the Chi-Coms. Will be borrowing the money from China anyway, but that's as far as it goes. No, we have sacrificed enough to the foreign policy screw-ups of Ivy League incompetence. Who got us into the Vietnam War? Who got us into Iraq? Not a lot of guys with high school diplomas, but those guys get asked to fight those wars. The same is true here. I see a lot of Twitter tough guys with the yellow and blue flag in their bios, and not a lot of them seem to be accepting Ukraine's appeal for fighters and enlisting in the Bill Kristol Brigade. Hey, don't worry, those same neo-commandos will cheer you and your kids up when you go make Ukraine safe for Ukrainians. Your sacrifices will be appreciated, plebs, right up until it's convenient to start calling you racist Jesus knuckle-draggers again. And if you ask why the hell we are not making America safe for Americans, you are in Putin's pocket, because it is somehow in Putin's interest that we shut down our open border, end crime, and promote free speech here in America. You are just too dumb to appreciate the nuance. Now the regime's media polls tell you a whole bunch of Americans would support a no-fly zone over Ukraine. You know, the Ukrainians sure would. Hey, if Harry Potter could wave a magic wand and make the Russians stop killing civilians and go home, awesome! Wave away! But that's nonsense, and unfortunately, at Hogwarts, our ruling class was sorted by the magic hat into House Dumbassy Indoor. These people are fools who talk big but think little. A no-fly zone means you shoot down any Russian who flies in. That's an act of war. The Russians get to shoot back, and they might choose to shoot back with something more than a conventional caliber cruise missile. But no one mentions that. Instead of polling, would you support making the Russians stop acting like Russians always do in wars? Maybe we should ask, would you risk Putin, who we are told is crazy and evil, retaliating by detonating a nuclear weapon over your hometown and potentially melting your kids into radioactive goo in order to resolve a border dispute on the dismal side of the globe? I anticipate a significantly smaller yes percentage when you ask the right question, but our sacrifice might be less than a mushroom cloud on the horizon. Maybe it's just $9 petrol. George Takei, the multi-millionaire, demanded on Twitter that we eagerly make this offering on the altar of Ukrainian sovereignty. I doubt he would notice the upcharge. I bet you would. Weird how the guys demanding sacrifices never seem to lead their own bull to the altar. Even weirder is how all the biggest pro-fossil sacrifice guys are also green energy investors. If I was cynical, I'd think, scam ahoy! What they never tell you is that there is no reason for any sacrifice to be had at all from cutting off Russian imports of oil and gas. We could make up the difference here at home. In fact, we were doing that. That is up until stupid people chose avoiding mean tweets over avoiding economic ruin. Now our energy industry has been trashed for a year, and it will take some time to spin up again in the off-chance President Asterisk chooses to defy the moronic congregation of the angry climate goddess worshippers. Our so-called leaders would rather us go bankrupt paying Iran and Venezuela more enemies for oil than let our own oil industry start up again. They now whine that, well, we can't just start pumping petrol again and immediately get relief. True, they should never have wrecked the industry as a, wait for it, sacrifice to the climate hoax to begin with. And of course, our alleged betters never thought to kickstart production again during the months this whole crisis was developing. In fact, they were filibustering Nord Stream 2 sanctions. Wait, isn't filibustering racist? But remember, they are serious, competent people we must obey without question. And if you doubt them, you love Putin. We need to reject the idea that we must sacrifice according to the dictates of our elites' fetishes. We owe the Ukrainians nothing. We have no treaty with them. Please do not quote vague promises of protection by Felonius Milhouse von Pantsu's husband that we never ratified as a treaty by our Senate. And let's be frank about the reality of the situation. Ukraine is on Russia's border. Our lousy ruling class's meddling in Ukrainian politics was going to be seen by the bear as a threat. Saying so is not somehow backing Russia. It's reality. It's something in short supply. Try knowing your enemy. It helps beat him. The gullibility of our ruling class and its media minions to Ukrainian information operations is no confidence builder either. No one can blame Ukraine for trying to convince the West to join its fight. Its survival is on the line. But we can blame our best and brightest, for believing every too-good-to-be-true story. There's a sucker born every minute, and a bunch of them will eventually attend Harvard. This is not the beginning of World War II. It's not Poland circa 1939. The tiresome Hitler comparisons are not designed to illuminate but to obscure. You are meant to accept and obey. And what you are meant to accept are things that we should never accept. Grabbing oligarchs' property without due process? Sure, it's satisfying, but it will be a lot less satisfying when the tactic is deployed against us for defying the ruling class. Just ask the Canadian truckers. And tossing people out of their jobs because they're Russian? That is a double-barreled disaster. Not only is it a dry run for using these tactics against internal enemies, but it also serves to whip up moral panic hysteria. Everybody hate Putin, now! Everybody hate Russians, now! Okay, now everyone hate this other personal group. Eventually, you will be the one in the crosshairs for official hate. You can still want the Ukrainians to repel the invaders without buying the notion that we should sacrifice blood, treasure, and our rights to do it. This unjust war is the Ukrainians to fight. I hope they win. Most of us do. But the idea that we Americans must sacrifice our lives, money, and freedoms is itself as great a danger to our country as this border war on the other side of our planet. We are Americans. Our first priority is America, and our terrible ruling caste should step up and sacrifice its own graft and power in order to defend it. Whew, it's the reason I don't do that every day. And that's all for today. Until next time.